Well, hi, this is Judith Reedy at the Creative Zone, right up there. And I am here today, and we're going to be starting a new series of paintings, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the problem. I actually think I started a little bit of it the other day, talked to you about it, but I'm going to be showing you step by step how I go through and develop a painting, especially when it's a little problematic. And I'll explain to you what the problem was as we go on. But first of all, I want to explain my process, and I also want to explain that right now you can find me on the Facebook page, Judith Reedy Creative Zone, and on the YouTube channel, Judith Reedy The Creative Zone. So I'm streaming to both of them right now at the same time, and I'm really excited about this because this way I can share with more people. And you know, I think that if you're really looking to learn how to paint, if you're really looking how to really create and know the process, some good processes, I think you've come to the right place. So for today, I'm going to show you right now a little bit about my process. I always start with my idea, and my idea might be a photograph. It might be something I see right in front of me in my home or on a walk or when I'm at someone else's house, and I might say, oh, I want to paint that, and I want to paint this thing. And then I get out there and I start, let's say I'm outside and I see I want to paint this barn, but there's this tree and it's in the way and all kinds of things. You don't necessarily have to paint everything you see. You paint your idea and you focus on that idea. And that's what you start doing in step 2, where you start refining your idea and deciding what to eliminate and what to include. That will help you to solve the problem. And that you're trying to resolve, because you want your viewer to focus in on something in particular, and you don't want them to be distracted by design elements or objects that will take their attention away from what you want them to see. So that's what you do in step 2, where we do sketching and drawing, and I'm going to show you a little bit of that today, and then we'll go on from that. And then I also talk about, after we've come up with our value structure, then I talk about, well, let's start proceeding to mix our colors. Now, last process I had done with pastel, which is a dry media made of gum arabic and pigment and a little water, and the water dries up and you end up with like basically what looks like chalk, but it's not chalk because it's much more intense than chalk and much more, well, let's put it more intense than chalk. And you can make such luscious colors, and they don't change, but they have to be generally covered. The process has to be covered with glass. At any rate, today we're working with paint, and I'm particularly working in this case with acrylic paint. And so I'm going to be showing you that process and how I mix with that, and how I'm kind of changing a little bit of the colors I have to and testing that. So that's one thing. And then fourth, we paint. So today we're going to be doing a little bit of 2, a little bit of 3, and a little bit of 4. So we will not be finishing the painting today, but we will get a good start, and maybe next time we'll come closer to finishing it, though. I did some more recording, but I didn't put it on here today. That makes the painting a little further along. So look forward to that on this coming Tuesday, because I do these demos on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So first of all, I want to talk to you about where I had been a couple weeks ago when I was in an open air plein air painting competition. I was in this little town of and I'm going to blow it up and let you see here where it is. In Mineral Point, you see my green arrow? Mineral Point, Wisconsin. Mineral Point is one of the oldest towns in the city in the state of Wisconsin. It was a mining town, and was primarily, there's the mining town right there, and it's a was primarily a mining town. It was one of the first towns built in Wisconsin. I don't know if it was the first, but they basically made their living underground, and that's where you get the idea of badgers. So let me tell you a little bit, show you some pictures of Mineral Point. It's just gorgeous. It has that kind of western look. This is the downtown High Street. You can look up the great place to get breakfast, and they have pasties, which is a Cornish dish, and actually very common. They would make these pasties up, and the miners would take them into the mine, and they would be wrapped up and nice and warm, and a good hearty meal with potatoes and meat and turnips, sometimes, and carrots. But you can see the various, High Street is just wonderful. It's an old, it's way up on a hill, and so but you can see the old fronts. Now this is an older version of it, but you can see High Street, and the town is just full of all kinds of historical buildings. You've got log cabins, and you have the buildings on Pendarvis. You have all kinds of, you have an old opera house that's pretty fancy. You have all kinds of interesting, and here's an example of some of the doorways are shorter. It's let's see if I can show you. This is Pendarvis, and the whole town is really quite picturesque. There's a lot of really great food. Chefs come there. A lot of people have retired to that area and have made it kind of a fun place to be. And so I was there for this event, and I was painting, and a wonderful woman came over and asked me, I think she's the president on the Chamber of Commerce. She says, nobody's painted my house. And so I went over to her house, and let's see if I can, well, I went over to her house, and I will explain that a little bit more, but this is the house. I'm doing this house now. This was the High Street. This is downtown Mineral Point, and the house that I painted was over here, and she wanted it painted. So I decided, there were 3 pieces of property there, and they're really quite lovely. This one's old. This is a cabin, and if you see the cabin, it's very rustic, and but it's quite lovely, and you can see it. Let's see if they show it to you. No, there it is. It's quite lovely. And then they have the cottage, which is a little later, and it has a little more finished, not quite as rustic, but it too has this quaint look. Well, I wanted to show you this interesting, this was the cottage, and really beautiful location, wooded, how it is in the winter. You can go there. I love the idea of, this is in the cabin, and they have this fireplace. So, I mean, you could go there and feel like you're on Little House on the Prairie or something. And in the middle of winter, it looks like a great getaway. So anyway, that was where I was wanting to be. And I had to decide whether I wanted to do the cabin or the cottage. And I made a decision. Nobody had done the house. And this is, I don't have all the views of the house. I actually think I'm going to show you that next time. But as you can see, one of the problems that I had is when I came to do the house at that time of day, almost everything seemed to be in shadow. That was interesting. And this part of the side was almost virtually in shadow. And when I came back the next day to want to paint it with the light, it was overcast. So there were no shadows, hardly at all. So there was nothing to paint. And so I started the painting, but I didn't quite finish it. And I've since kind of redesigned it and went through a whole bunch of changes, because I had this idea of having dappled light and having cast shadow and the sharpness, and it just wasn't working out, because when I first came there were no shadows and dappled light and no shadow. It was all in shadow and hardly any light, and so it was very tricky. So I have started that painting, and I'm going to talk about how I tried to resolve the problems, and I'll show you some of the earlier photographs. But now we're going to get into the whole process and what I'm going to be doing and what I did. So you can see here I did a drawing, and I have the values. And the values that I have, I've decided that there's basically 3 values, 5, 2 and 3, and maybe 9. And so I'm going to mix those, but I'm going to do an underpainting. And I want the underpainting to be, I'm basically going to tone the canvas with a middle value. And the middle value is going to be a 5. But I have to mix the 5, and I'm using burnt sienna as the primary underpainting color that I'm going to be using here. And so I'm pretty excited about that. And so I'm matching that, trying to match that number 5 gray on my 10 scale to make sure that I'm right in the middle, so that when I develop my painting, I'm going to be, a large part of it is middle value, but then some is going to be very light and some is going to be very dark. So I think I've gotten it almost, but not quite. And so I'm mixing that color. And this palette of mine is supposed to be middle gray, but I'm beginning to realize that the palette is not middle gray the way I use middle gray. So here we go, and now we have 3 values we're going to have. So we're going to remove that and and I'm going to put the actual, this is the drawing, and underneath there I have another drawing, but first that I sort of started, but now I'm going to be laying in the toned color that I made, that middle number 5. And so I'm going to be painting that so that we end up with a middle value, because a large portion of this painting is middle value. And then I'm going to paint in the light and paint in the dark, and then vary those a little bit. So that is how I've decided I'm going to build this painting. So as you can see, I'm toning the canvas in different directions so that this is kind of a panel, and the panel has a grit on it, and if I don't do that, I end up with areas that are left white. And the other thing, I think I should dry it before I start doing anything. I'm going to dry it with a hair dryer, which is what I'm doing here. And the next thing I'm going to do, and this is where I'm going to stop pretty soon, because I failed to show you something, and I'm going to see if I can do that right here. See if I can stop right here, and then I'm going to go back to my scene. And I didn't because I'm going to be using, I took this paper and I took some graphite and I rubbed it all over, and then I lay it down, and I'm going to be using it almost like carbon paper. And I didn't show you that, but that's how I did that. I made a couple mistakes while I did it, but it works, and we're going to get back to doing this here. We're going to go back to the scene. We're going to go right to here, So I'm drying it. Okay, it went back. So I let it dry, and I'm getting ready to, you can see a little bit of the drawing, but a lot of it got covered up. So I'm going over and I'm checking the value. You can see the value's correct. I'm going to use white, I'm going to use dark, checking the values, making sure they're correct. So then I'm going to take the drawing, and underneath the drawing I put this paper that I showed you, and I start drawing, and I go over that drawing, and I'm basically transferring the drawing onto the dried panel, trying to get the perspective right so that and I'm not, I'm doing the basic shapes. I'm not going to do every item. I just want to get some ideas so that I don't want to re-spend the whole idea of drawing it over again. So this was a very interesting scene to me, because of the fact that we had so many elements. We had the house, we had the tree, and we had the shadow, the dappled light on the bottom, and I really had to simplify some of this situation to make it less complicated. And so that's really was a major portion of my job in this project, because I really did not have a clear view of the house, undistracted, especially with this entry here. So, but I see here that, I'm just working on, I have to move that white. I could have made a larger piece, but I was moving it around and kind of tracing the edges. And I check it periodically to make sure that I don't miss anything. But occasionally I actually went and drew over the areas that didn't have the carbon underneath, but you can see it's coming out really pretty clearly. And we're almost done with that section. And I'm just doing the quick shapes and leaving some of the places where the lights are. Mostly I'm looking for the three values, the white or the light, the lightest, the medium, and the dark. And that's pretty much how I'm trying to identify So now you can't really see it very well, so that's why I'm going to be taking the lightest value now and putting it down and painting it in. And you'll see that as I do this, it starts giving structure to the entire scene, and from that I'll use that as the basis to build the whole painting in. And I really do it was just my decision to do it this way, because I felt it would simplify, and I want to have the lights really light, so that's why I'm painting it white underneath. And that's the beauty of working with acrylic, is that you can do this very simply and quickly. With oil, it's possible to do this, but you'd have to wait quite a bit for it to dry, and this way I can get this done pretty easily. At this event, I painted 5 paintings and really enjoyed. I did 2 in the country and 3 in the city. really like the city. It's got a lot of interesting architecture, interesting homes. Mineral Point is definitely a place to visit if you're in Wisconsin. They have music, they have all kinds of things going on there all the time, and the restaurants are delicious, delicious food. So I'm really just sort of trying to map the thing out. All of this white is going to be covered up eventually with something else. And so it's just a beginning to give me like a map to work from. Now I've sped this up, I think in some cases 4 times, many cases 4 times, and some places 8 times, because this was a somewhat tedious process. Now I'm going to be putting in the dark, the bird sienna in its, and there's I got it. What color is bird sienna? Is it black? It's not really black. It's really closest to the that next to black color, number 4. So that's, and this is, I changed it to grayscale, and because we're really painting with values. That's what I'm trying to start with, to paint this all with values and to get the values so that they're believable. And I'm having a little problem with the light, so that hopefully you can see this, but I'm basically putting the values in right now. And putting in those areas that to give it a little more design element. And I'm going to use the tree to kind of take your eye around the painting, and then the stones around the walk to take you back around again, and I'll be highlighting them. But this place was built in the 1800s, and I'm going to get more information about it and talk to you about when it was built. These black, they're actually going to be black, planters were original when the current owners bought the place. They basically, those were there. There's also hitching posts that those are the hitching posts that were there, and they're also that were original with the house. So this had to be built at least before there were cars, because you know, obviously people were hitching their horses and not their cars. So we can see that we're pretty close. We're doing an underpainting, we're getting the drawing in, we're getting And it's pretty much done for now, and for today. This is pretty much as far as I got. So that was it. I was kind of, we're doing all the underpainting, we're getting the values, because it's a very complex setting. It really is. It's not, you want to have that house in there, and you want to have the tree, it's surrounded by trees and a tangle of bushes, some of which don't have leaves but have a lot of twigs. So you've got to lay them in and put them in a way that they're interesting and yet not confusing. So it is a little tricky thing to do. But that's what we're going to be working on and making our variations as we go through this. Now, for those of you who have signed up and are in my Color Foundations course, I have some good news. I have added a new unit called Unit 3, in which we're going to be painting flowers. And of course, I have my course, 7 Essential Simple Tricks to Mix Colors. That's going to help you be able to mix any color. Well, in this second course, we apply those principles in Color Foundations, and we start applying them in actually making flowers and matching things a lot. But a lot of painting isn't necessarily matching. It's sometimes changing the hue, but keeping the value. And so we're going to do some exercises with these flowers where you actually you paint the flowers, changing the hue. And we select the hues and mix them and practice them, but we're going to also practice adjusting values and knowing how to do that and the impact that has on your painting. So this is an exciting unit. I think you're going to find it really helpful, and you can just follow along and you're going to be able to do that. But for those of you who haven't started Color Foundations and are really interested in learning more about color, I have my course, 7 Essential Simple Tricks to Mix Color. And it is available to you anytime. You can watch it on your tablet, your phone, or your computer anytime. And I think you'll enjoy it. It has the essentials that you need to know in mixing colors. I give you a warm and cool of each of the 3 primaries, and I explain why. And I explain how using the right primary will give you the purple or the green that you're looking for. Whereas if you choose a different primary when you're mixing, you're going to sometimes not understand why you can't get that brilliant purple or that brilliant green or that brilliant orange. And so I'm going to be explaining that and showing you how you can keep your colors just really clean and bright, but also how you can reduce the intensity of a color, how you can do that using tints, tones, and shades, as well as complements. And then I also talk about color vibration. Why when you put certain colors together do they vibrate? When you lay them right next to each other, not mix them together, but lay them together. What creates the vibration and how does that work? All of that you're going to get in 7 Essential Simple Tricks to Mix Color for only $7. So I suggest you take a look at it, and it's in the link below, and sign up today. And then you can join me in my Color Foundations course, and of course join me every week on Tuesday and Thursday at around 2:30, depending, to mix, to watch, and to experience how it is that we go about building a painting. So I hope you enjoyed this today and found it helpful. Please, if you have any questions, leave a question, a comment. I'm more than happy to answer your questions. And so till next week, I hope that you have a great weekend and that you are going to be painting and have a great time painting. And I'll see you again on Tuesday.